Hey, this is Aaron Wimberly with Aetuts.com, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do a look that is similar to the Sherlock Holmes credits, and we're going to be using hand-drawn elements as well as some different textures and some matte elements, and of course we're going to be using After Effects. So let's take a look at the final product, what it'll look like. Alright, so we're going to open up After Effects. We're going to import all of the files that we need, which aren't all of these. Don't need those, so there we go. Open, and we're going to create a new composition. It's going to be 14 seconds long. It's going to be called the final comp because it will be our final comp. 1280-720 is fine. We're going to bring in the footage, and I know that where I want this is actually the end of it goes right there, so we'll get it to there, and I know I want it at 5, so that's the still shot I want. It's going to be right there. So first what I'm going to do is go to comp, save frame as, file. I'm going to save this as still frame. I'm going to save and render. And then I'm going to import that. Let's see, still frame right there. Open. I'm going to bring that into the final comp. I'm going to put it on top, bring it to 5 right there. So now that's going to give it just like that. Okay, so first what I'm going to do, we're going to bring the hue and saturation to where it's going to be black and white. And then we're also going to do brightness contrast. And that's going to be not too bright. We want to keep it to where we can see the outline. But whenever you're tracing it, it's going to be a lot easier to see all the, the outline whenever it's the contrast is up quite a bit. So that's that. You're going to take this. You're going to save the frame. This one is going to be BW frame, and save that, and then render that. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to print out that image, and I'm going to trace around the character. Don't worry too much about the shadows. What you want to do is, in the Sherlock Holmes credits, they did lines to make it look like newspapers. So that's pretty much what you're going to want to do. Do some lines around where the big traces are, like around the face and the nose and the ear and all that kind of stuff. And then for the shadows, just do simple lines right beside each other. And then what you're going to do is take that and you're going to scan it back in and then bring it into After Effects. Alright, so now you're going to bring that trace into After Effects right there. And then you're going to create a new composition. This is going to be 14 seconds long. It's going to be called Trace. And you're going to bring that trace, you're going to bring this trace right there, and you're going to bring this black and white photo. Let's duplicate that so we still have one in there. And then we're going to cut and copy that into here, and you're going to size up the trace around the original image. Alright, now once you've sized it up correctly, you're going to want to do a mask around both of these. So let's do that. And you're going to want to keep it kind of close, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Alright, so bring that other image up. We are going to put a linear burn on the traced image. That's going to give it to where you can see the image behind it. And then for this one, we're going to take the brightness and contrast, and we're going to make it to where that image is given the big shadows. So bring the contrast up quite a bit, just like that. And bring the brightness up some as well. And that will give us the look that we're going for. Alright, next we're going to create the actual bleed effect. So let's do new composition. This is only going to be 9 seconds long, and it's going to be called Bleed. First we're going to do a background, so let's do a new solid, and that's going to be white, and let's call that BG for background. Then we're going to bring a texture, and this texture is from Aetutsplus.com, and it's one of the free textures on their freebies page. And we're going to bring the size down to about right there. We want the shadow because that's going to be bringing the title, the name out a little bit towards the end. You'll see what I'm talking about. Now with this, we want to do the same thing, hue and saturation, that we did with the photo. Brightness, contrast. We're going to bring the saturation down, bring the brightness up, contrast up quite a bit. We want it about right there. Okay? And then we're going to make that bleed in. So this is the first bleed we're going to have. And this is going to be reveal 1. And we're going to need a white background for this because we want it to stay the entire time. So let's do a white solid. You'll see what I'm talking about here. If you put it behind there, this goes from black and bleeds and then goes to white. And so with that white background behind it, it's going to make it last the entire comp. So let's pre-compose that. Just like that. And that's going to be leak 1. And then we're going to set the matte for the paper, and we're going to do lightness, make sure it's for leak 1. We're going to turn off that layer, and so all we're going to see is that right there. And we're going to bring that to right there, and that's going to start about 1, so it starts at a different time than that the main leak starts, the main bleed. Alright, and then next up we're actually going to use that trace that we just did. So let's bring the trace in, and we're going to duplicate that. And this first one we're going to take into here. We're going to take the eraser, make sure the cursor right here is at the very beginning, and we're going to erase around some of the main parts just like that to where it's just the face, just like that. We're going to go back into the bleed comp. As you can see, it does that right there. So we're going to get another reveal. These reveals are from videocopilot.net, and their program, it's called Riot Gear, and it has a whole bunch of different stuff like this, bleed and paint splatters and all that kind of stuff. Really cool. Alright, and so let's bring that behind there. Let's pre-compose that. Let's call that leak 2. Well, and then this one is actually going to be leaking with that one. So let's set the matte for the trace that we did not erase anything from, and it's going to be on leak 2, and it's going to be lightness, and we're going to make that invisible, and so that's going to bleed in just like that right there. So we're going to bring that in about 15, just like that. Alright, so next up we want to do the paint splatters for the name. So let's put the name in there, and I'm using a font called Angel Tears from defont.com, and we're gonna, you won't be able to see it yet, but you will be able to see it by the end of it. So if we bring this down, if you watch this right here, bleeds, and you're able to see that. But we want some paint splatter to show the rest of the name. So we take this one here, and both of these as well. Let's just bring them all in. Let's do the same thing with all of them. Set matte, lightness, fill. And we're going to do a really dark gray. I'm just copying the fill to both of the other paints. This first one we want in the bottom corner, and the other two are going to reveal the name. So let's bring these towards the end of the comp, so we know exactly where they're going to be going to reveal the name. Let's transform these, rotate, just like that. Rotate. Let's bring the name above it. There we go. Perfect. Now we're going to do some blending modes with these paints. We're going to do linear burn in all of them. That'll make it look like it's actually on there. It'll bring the shadows out from the background. So that's that for the name. Alright, now we're going to do a couple more things. We're going to bring in some background elements. First, let's do a drop. Drop's going to come in. Same thing. Set matte, fill color. We're going to make this a really dark brown. We're going to make this a color burn. That way it kind of looks like a coffee stain coming in, just like that. Let's bring it up a little bit. We're going to do another one. To keep the entire thing making it look like it's moving, we're going to do a flow. Same thing, set matte and fill color. Like I said, I should just copy and paste the fill from the other one since it'll be the same color. And the same thing on this is going to be a color burn. We're actually going to bring this one around so it starts from the other side, so let's 180 that. Let's make sure our paint splatters are in the right place. We want these to make sure they last the entire time. Bring that to there. So at 4 and at 4:15, those start up. And then the other one starts at 6. That last paint splatter. There you go. So that is our bleed right there. Starts out just like that. Bleeds in. Everything comes in. Paint splatters in. Other paint splatters in. So there we go. That's our main bleed. Alright, now let's go back to our final comp that we had earlier. Let's take off these two effects from that. Let's bring in bleed. Let's make that at 5, where the actual still part starts. We're going to bring that to the back. We're going to pre-compose both of these so that there won't be 2 layers. That's going to be final. Then we're going to do the last bleed, which is going to be reveal 01. Bring that in, do a new solid, same thing that we did earlier. This is going to be leak 3. We're going to bring that to the back. We're going to pre-compose these, just like that. Don't really care about the name of that. Bring this to 5. Then we're going to do the same thing. Set matte. For final lightness. But with this one, we're going to do pre-comp 1, invert map. Then we're going to make that invisible. So what that does now is bleeds in. Now I also set a camera and a null object, and I pick whip that, and I make it to where this null object makes the camera zoom in on all the parts that I want it to zoom in on. So I know that at 9:15 that paint's going to start going. So I want to make sure it zooms in on that. So I'm going to zoom in, move it around a little bit. I have complete control over it if I do it this way. And then I know at 13.5 that paint's going to splatter, so I'm going to do the camera for those. Make sure you don't go off the image at all. There's no black lines around the sides whenever you're moving around. Alright, and so that's it. So let's add this to render queue. Alright, so let's take a look at the final product. Now, in the actual credits of the Holmes movie, they had a lot less camera movement and a lot faster bleeds. But this is really just a basic tutorial to show you exactly how to do some of that kind of stuff. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it'll be beneficial to you. And this has been Aaron Wimberly with Aetuts.com.